You know why I always say don't look at me for predictions? I'm not good at it. Here I was Friday, this very same chair, this very same time, saying, I bet next week is going to be less newsworthy. It was such a busy week. Probably going to slow down next week. Well, boy, did that change over the weekend. Saturday morning, we all woke up to the news of epic fury. We have taken out almost 99% there, the terroristic Islamic regime of Iran, and there are mass celebrations all over the world. But an amazing thing happened. The celebrations in the United States, they weren't the first on the streets, but the celebrations here in the U.S. drowned out the inorganic paid protests that were the exact same thing with Venezuela. They drowned them out, so much so that all of your favorite mainstream networks were forced to cover the celebrations of it. Unbelievable. We'll talk about that as well. Thanks for finding the live stream. I appreciate you. Wicked Radio, live Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. Eastern Time on X and YouTube and Facebook, the audio podcast as well. Let's get right to it. We woke up to the official announcement. Let's work our way backwards here from President Trump about what we're doing in the region.
Finally, to the great, proud people of Iran, I say tonight that the hour of your freedom is at hand. Stay sheltered. Don't leave your home. It's very dangerous outside. Bombs will be dropping everywhere. When we are finished, take over your government. It will be yours to take. And
isn't that amazing? That leaves us to the question, and that was a couple of days ago, where do we go from here? Apparently, if you want to listen to the news reports, there is a plan in place. The Iranian people want the rightful heirs to that regime in charge instead of what took over in 1979. And look back, and I found myself, I've done this before, I'm sure you have too, looking back at the old pictures, everybody posting pictures of what Iran was. And all the Iranians who have been exiled out of there, and even ones who are now starting to speak out and celebrate their freedom, said, we were never a Muslim country. We're not. We were advanced. We were here. We were a part of the world power. We were educated. We were technologically advanced. And then this insane regime took over in a coup. That's what most will tell you. And now you look at it and you say, how did that even happen? And where did they go from here? Regardless, an amazing change in world power. Before any of that happened, now while Iranians throughout the entire world, those who have been exiled, those people who were left there on their own, they were watching for news reports and trying to get in touch with their loved ones. Before they even got to the streets to celebrate, guess what came out first? And this is the first part of the story, but it's okay, it gets better. Before that even happens, of course, the exact same inorganic paid protesters hit the streets in Boston, New York, a little bit in the Midwest, L.A. I saw. At first, this wasn't the whole story of the weekend, though, but here's some of the first protests out there. Tell me if you don't think this sounds familiar.
Everywhere! No boots on the ground, no bombs in the air! No boots on the ground, no bombs in the air! U.S. out of every...
That was Boston, of course, the People's Republic of Boston. What's become of that? This is for you visual viewers only, live streamers only. You had a sign there that looked exactly, it should look familiar because it's the exact sign that has shown up in the first inorganic protests for Venezuela, also for ending the war in the Middle East against Israel. The exact same signs showed up, which should be your first sign that this is completely inorganic. Here's more. Now that was Washington, D.C., and I played that one right after the first one from Boston because it was just about the same time with the same exact signs. If you're an audio listener only, I apologize. But the exact same signs once again. There's a dude I want you to follow on X. His name is Wall Street Apes. I think it's a dude. Yeah, Wall Street Apes. A great follow, a great account. Has done an amazing job, and I tried to repost this stuff on X as best I possibly could. Did an amazing job for probably over a year now about these paid protesters, and points out he has an incredible video. I reposted this one of two girls walking with I always call it like a beach wagon. It's kind of like a blue foldable beach wagon thing with all of those same pre-printed signs with the sticks that get stapled onto them walking to that very same New York protest. The same thing, saying the same thing. And Wall Street Apes, the X account you should follow, is doing a little bit more research into where and who is funding all of this stuff. And we'll get to the good stuff about them getting drowned out in a second. He points out that the Hands Off Venezuela protest in New York City, remember that one? Is the exact same thing with many of the same people, not just signs, as the Hands Off Iran protest, again in New York City. And again, this is the guy that has posted video of people walking in, the paid protesters putting their signs together, ready to go before even the Iranian celebrations, and the timeline's important here. Both protests, according to Wall Street Apes, funded by an organization, an NGO called the People's Forum. It's an NGO, non-government organization, that means your tax dollars are going to it, that has received over $20 million from a billionaire who lives in China with ties to the CCP. Wall Street Apes says the NGO's primary funding over $20 million, primary funder, Neville Roy Singham. Residents in Shanghai, business ties to the CCP or later related events, funds media outlets echoing Chinese state narratives. So if you ever wondered who's putting together, who funds, who puts out the ads to organize all these paid protesters that we always see at the same protests for all the big world events, they're always first on the street with the exact same signs, it's people like that. Why don't we cut off the money is the question we should all be asking. Yes, we should, but it's okay. But while that was happening, no, you got world celebrations, right, happening here. Let's go to the streets in Iran. This is while bombs are still dropping in the middle of epic fury. Things a little bit different of a tone than what you hear over here.
He's dead. How are you feeling?
Amazing! If he's dead!
Yes, they've confirmed.
Sounds a little bit different than the paid protesters in the U.S. Let's go to some. Those were high school kids celebrating the Iranian regime leader dying. Let's get some more. Now, if they're in mass celebration, why should paid inorganic protesters in the U.S. be hitting the streets, right? And a little juxtaposed difference here on what's going on with celebrations for the people who actually know what's going on, the people that have lived this terror now for, 47 years, since 1979? And then you have the idiots in the streets in the U.S. at first. Now, you'd expect all of those celebrations happening in Iran, right? Finally, they're going to get at least a chance. Who knows if it's going to work? Let's hope it does. A chance at freedom. So they're celebrating. They're praising Trump everywhere. You'd expect that in the streets of Tehran when it's safe, right? But how about in the States? Because magically, and this is the amazing part of the story, all of those celebrations started to break out here as well. And they drowned out the paid protesters. American flags, Iranian flags, traditional Iranian flags, and some Israeli flags there. You know where that was? San Francisco, California. Same thing you could see, and you could cherry pick any video you want from L.A. back to Boston. There were celebrations breaking out. A lot of them in Washington, D.C. Chicago had some. So very, very quickly, even though they were first on the street because they're more organized and paid to go and had the pre-printed signs ready to go before we even probably announced Epic Fury, the paid protesters were there first, but not last. They were drowned out by celebrations across the world. And that should tell you everything. As Iranian citizens and those who know what's actually happening here, we're celebrating. You have these idiots over here protesting anything and everything just to oppose and cause disruption. Unbelievable. Unbelievable development. Now, here's the other thing. They weren't only drowned out in the streets, they were drowned out in the media. Now, it started at first, the same media play. You know, I always focus in on the media coverage of these different things. It started off at first where they were just focusing in and zooming right in on the protests in Boston and L.A. and, and New York and all the same things. Then, pretty soon, they couldn't ignore the story that was really happening here, the celebrations over this. Right or wrong, people were happy about this. And many people, even Democrats, were speaking out against it in support. CNN, and this is long, but it's worth watching and listening to. CNN was forced to air the entire segment, the entire interview of this very prominent Iranian-American Democrat. She's a business leader. She's a, a nonprofit organization, founder about, the Iranian people and helping them out, but a very important Democrat. She goes live on CNN, and they didn't dare interrupt her because the Democrats don't know what to do. They don't know how to be upset about this one. And she goes on to call out her own party over their absolute confusion over this issue. This was amazing. It was epic to watch and listen to.
I think that it is imperative the Democratic Party wake up and get past their dislike of Donald Trump, the President Trump, and their feelings of international conflicts going on. This is about national security. This is about what is possible in the Middle East. This is about being a good neighbor, good partner to the Gulf states and what their aspirations are. This is about supporting the people of Venezuela. This is about dismembering our relationship with, or not dismembering, but resetting our relationship with China. Right now, 55% of the oil production that Iran produces goes to China despite sanctions. You want to support the people of Ukraine? You want to end that war? You have to. There is no getting around dismembering this Islamic Republic. It is non-negotiable. It is not a want to have. It is a have to have. And it's not just for the Iranian people. I think you have to trust the Iranian people. We know this government better than anyone else. When you dismember and decapitate this regime, you are going to see a change in the Middle East, in Venezuela, in China, in Ukraine. And I think, quite frankly, their ideology has it's caused a lot of problems for us worldwide. We need to take it seriously. And I think at this point, we have a tremendous opportunity. This will be like ending the Soviet Union, the Berlin Wall. This is a transformational moment for humankind, for security. And as an American, this is in our interest to complete it. So I am a Democrat. I have been a huge Democrat. I am incredibly disappointed with my party. I do not see myself in them in this moment.
You know how much media I watch and how many news clips, and I'm sorry that was really long, but I think every single word she uttered was important. I mean this. I'm not trying to hype this up. That was one of the most incredible statements I've ever seen, at least on a network like CNN. Here she is, a prominent Democrat. CNN, and trust me, this is how it works in newsrooms. Get somebody on. Call them right now. Who's in our list right now? Who can we get on to try to moderate this thing, to get in there? We need an Iranian. Who's a proud Iranian Democrat? What can we do to try to bring some negativity towards this? Believe me, that's how it happens. And there she is, and they had. There was no way she could even interrupt her. That's why the segment went on so long. And she says, my party really needs to wake up and understand. They need to get over their hatred of Donald Trump and get over this and understand what's good for the world. And now think of what she's saying. She pointed it out exactly. She pointed out exactly why her own party is so twisted and confused over this. Well, all of the international experts are saying this probably means a more stable Middle East, at least a chance of it. It means freedom for the Iranian people, a chance of it. Well, it means, geopolitically for the U.S., it's probably a good thing because China would, they were going to take the oil anyway. And they're trying their best to figure out how this is a bad thing. And she just shot down all their arguments, and there was nothing they could say about it. And it was fantastic that she said that. It was great. And that's happening all over. They don't know they're trying their absolute best to try to find a negative in this. And there's always a negative in war, obviously. There always is, and there's always a risk. But think about what she said there. You have the main sponsor of terror throughout the world, and has for decades now. That regime toppled. There's air superiority in a matter of it happened in hours over that country. They have or had a nuclear weapon that we're going to have to work on for probably months and years to try to dismantle their capability. They sponsor terror throughout the entire world, not just in their own country, and just what they've done to their own people there. All of these things, everything led by the United States to topple all of that terror. And the Democrats tried their absolute best to try to negative in it. And there she is, live on their air saying, this is ridiculous. We need to get past this and understand what's good. And think about the future as well. I heard General Jack Keane, the guy the real serious guy that Fox News always has on. He was amazing to watch this weekend because he started to get into, usually he's kind of jovial and he tries to be lighthearted about things. He was all business, and the general side of him went into what this actually means strategically. And he said something amazing. He said, what do you think Russia, China, Ukraine, all of these other world powers are thinking right now? You think China now is thinking a little bit more about what they want to do with Taiwan and taking over? You think they're going to back off? It was amazing. It was absolutely amazing development. All right, but the president did talk about the ugly side of all this, and this is what we all didn't want to hear. And we don't want a long, dragged-out war that puts American troops in danger, but he did have a pretty tough announcement to make. Then this one was yesterday.
Earlier today, CENTCOM shared the news that 3 U.S. military service members have been killed in action. As one nation, we grieve for the true American patriots who have made the ultimate sacrifice for our nation, even as we continue the righteous mission for which they gave their lives. We pray for the full recovery of the wounded and send our immense love and eternal gratitude to the families of the fallen. And say,
horrible. You just feel for those families, obviously, but I had to figure that something like this was going to happen. But look at the grand scheme of this whole thing. That's what I keep thinking of. An actual chance. I never thought it would happen in my lifetime. I really didn't. An actual chance for peace in that region, or at least a shot at it. Can you imagine? Hey, can you imagine let me leave you with this. Can you imagine being an Iranian citizen who wasn't able to get out and join their family members in the States, Canada, Australia, somewhere, England, even Germany? Imagine living under that regime. You had a technologically advanced society in Iran, and then all of a sudden in 1979, a coup, and that's what they're calling it now, a coup happens where Islamists take over your country and turn it into an absolute third world hellhole with a nuke. Can you imagine? You have to, at some level, feel good for those people now for sticking it out and getting a taste of freedom. And let's all pray that they actually get it. And this does lead to a good thing. It's amazing. And one more thing, and I just saw this right before we went live. Scott Bessent, our Treasury Secretary, had a fascinating take on this, and I never thought about this. All these Islamist dictators and this regime that was there and all the money that was there, what happens? Do they get it? The ones that weren't killed, and they killed some of the leadership immediately, apparently. A lot of it we're learning now in one strike. What happens to all of them that are still there, that were supporting this regime in that country or were benefiting from it? They're obviously trying to get out. What happens to the money? And I always wondered this when a world conflict like this happens. He had an amazing answer. I just saw this morning.
Going to see to that. Yeah. And Rob, the other thing as Treasury who carries out the sanctions, we can see is we are now seeing the rats fleeing the ship, because we can see millions, tens of millions of dollars being wired out of the country, snuck out of the country by the Iranian leadership. So they are abandoning ship, and we are seeing it come into banks and financial institutions all over the world. And what we do at Treasury is we follow the money, whether it is through the typical banking system or through digital assets. We are going to trace these assets, and they will not be able to keep them.
You'll freeze.
Well, that's what I was waiting for at the end there. Okay, so what are you going to do about it? You can trace it. You know where it's coming from. What can you do? Can you freeze it? Ah, good. You know what that means? That means less power for terrorists who will just go to a different country. Who knows? You never want to see war. Nobody ever wants to see, God forbid, American service people killed, obviously. But boy, the chance at freedom, the chance at peace in that region, and it's not even that region because they sponsor terror all over the world. But again, and I'll leave you with this takeaway. The most amazing thing happened. We all start to think that it's just the lunatics with the paid protests and the pre-printed signs and all the coverage they get in the media that they run things, right? They run the narrative. This is the second one in a row. Venezuela and now this, where the paid protesters who were absolutely clueless, they didn't even know what they're protesting except disruption. The second time in a row they get drowned out by common sense and freedom. It can happen. It's an amazing thing to see. Let's just pray that there's less casualties in the entire area and peace can break out. That's what we all want. All right, we'll keep an eye on that. And like I said, maybe there are actually lighthearted stories and not war to talk about tomorrow. I don't know. But this is going to... Here's another thing. Let's hope this doesn't linger on too long. So far, according to all the generals like Jack Keane on Fox News, it's been an amazingly effective and efficient mission so far. So let's hope that happens. And I hate to say it any other simply way, but let's pray for peace. Thanks for finding me on the live stream. I appreciate you. Wicked Radio live stream every single day, Monday through Friday, on X and YouTube and on Facebook and the audio podcast as well. Thanks for hanging out with me. It's only Monday, but make it an awesome one. Talk to you tomorrow.